Hey guys, it's Brant and I'm back and we're going to be doing another KISS album review. Today I'm going to be reviewing KISS's 1979 release, Dynasty. Let's go ahead and get right into it.
The return of KISS. The return of KISS. Don't miss the return of KISS. It's the album you've waited 2 years to hear. KISS Dynasty. It's the hot new, all-new album from Casablanca. KISS Dynasty.
KISS Dynasty was released on May 23rd, 1979. It was produced by Vinnie Poncia. It was recorded and mixed by Jay Messina at Electric Lady and Record Plant Studios, New York City, from January to February 1979. It was also engineered by John Mathis and Jim Galante. This was KISS' 7th studio album overall and their 16th release overall, including live and compilation albums and 4 solo albums. This was an intimate era, as this was Peter's last album that he would appear on, and he would only play one song. Anton Fig performed on all the other tracks. This was KISS's first full studio album since Love Gun in 1977. Fans had waited over 3 years for this album. This was the last KISS studio album of the 70s. Although Vinnie Poncia produced Peter's album, he felt that Peter's drumming was not up to par. The feeling was shared by Gene and Paul. Peter's hands were in bad shape from injuries he had sustained in an accident in 1978. Other than Anton Fig, Vinnie Poncia was the only other outside musician, and he provided background vocals and played keyboards. The Dynasty tour featured KISS's most elaborate costumes to date, and the tour and the stage was the largest and the most elaborate. The album and supporting tour was promoted as the return of KISS. At this point, KISS had saturated the market with merchandise, TV appearances, interviews, made-for-TV movie on a major network, pinball machine, dolls, makeup kits, radios, trash cans, the list goes on and on. The album peaked at number 9 on the charts and spent 25 weeks on the U.S. charts. Dynasty was certified gold by the RIAA on June 6, 1979, and certified platinum on July 10, 1979. The cover photo was a composite photo. The included poster originally showed the band members in straitjackets, but the label thought it was too inappropriate for KISS's younger fans, so it was altered to look like they were in black shirts. So I've got my 2 copies. I lost my original. I've had this album since I was 10. I remember being in line, going and getting the album. I remember there was a line down the block at a record store called the Record Bar that's in Gastonia doesn't exist anymore. And I remember my mom taking me down there and us getting the record, and they had these big, huge posters. This was a big deal. This was when KISS was at their highest. And I have my, I don't have my original anymore. Like I said, I've said in past videos, a lot of that stuff got stolen. A lot of my all my collection got stolen. I had all originals and everything. But this is my 180 gram version of the album, released in 2014. It's still sealed. I've not opened it yet. And this is a first press that I picked up. It's not complete. It has the sleeves in pretty good shape, front and back sleeves. And the songs are not in order on the back. On the back, they're listed Charisma, Dirty Living, Hard Times, I Was Made for Loving You, Magic Touch, Save Your Love, Sure Know Something, XRay Eyes, and 2000 Man. And well, there's something I want to say about the track listing, but I'll say it later in my review. This is the dust sleeve that the album came in, and this is the album. It's got the band members on it. It doesn't have the Casablanca Filmworks label. It has the band members. Thought that was pretty cool. And that's the poster, what you actually see there. I don't have a poster in this one. It's incomplete. I'll eventually get the poster. I do have the poster back there in the reissue from 2014, but I don't have it in this one. So that's it for the packaging and everything. That's it for the trivia. Let's go ahead and let's get to the songs. Let's get right into this thing. We're going to start with track 1, side 1. What is it? I Was Made for Loving You. I Was Made for Loving You. It was written by Paul Stanley, Desmond Child, and Vinnie Poncia. Sang by Paul. Paul played rhythm guitar. Gene played bass guitar. Ace played lead. Anton Fig played the drums. Vinnie Poncia also played the keyboard and sang backing vocals. Now, KISS starts the album with I Was Made for Loving You. They started with the disco track that, got the album dubbed as the Disco KISS album, or Disco KISS. And yes, this song does have that disco feel to it, but I don't really think to me it's not a disco song. I've heard disco, and this isn't a disco song. It has disco tendencies. It does have that funky 70s, almost porn movie sounding bass line. When this song first starts, I think of, 70s porn music before I start thinking of disco music, which those are kind of one and the same in a way. But it's a great song. This is Paul's first song on the album. Paul had been frequenting Studio 54. It's the first song on the album, but it was the last song that was written for the album. Paul brought in the idea and said he wanted to write a disco song, a KISS song that sounded like disco. And so Paul brought in the idea and worked it out with Desmond Child and Vinnie Poncia. And he had met Desmond Child through the female singers that was sang on Paul's solo album, Move On. They're part of a band called Desmond Child and Rouge. And Rouge was the three girl singers, and Desmond Child was the guy singer and the lead. And so that's how Paul met Desmond, and Desmond would go on to write songs for many other people as well as write songs for KISS as well. So what do I think of I Was Made for Loving You? I think it's an okay song. I like the solo. I like the way, I just like the way it sounds. It's Paul Stanley construction. And so on my rating scale, I give this song a 7. So we're going to go ahead and move on to the second track, 2000 Man.
Don't you know I'm a 2000 man, and my kids, they just don't understand me at all.
2000 Man was written by Keith Richards and Mick Jagger. It was sang by Ace. Ace also played all the guitars and the bass guitar, and Todd Fig played the drums. Now the second track goes to Ace for the very first time. Ace has only had a song that he's sang vocals on, one other song on one other album on Love Gun. But holy crap, track number 2, Ace. He's in front of Gene. And so I really like 2000 Man. I think it's a great song. This is a Stones song. It's kind of off their kind of psychedelic album, and it is largely acoustic on the original. It's largely acoustic, and it's kind of a slower tempo. Ace took it and electrified it and made it a rocker, and I really love this song. It's probably one of my favorite Ace songs up to this point. And I really like it. I like the way it was recorded. Ace brought this song entirely produced, demoed, arranged, and he gave it to the band, and the band really liked it, and the only minor changes was made. And Ace plays most of the instruments on it. It's largely Ace and Anton Fig, so it could have been on a solo album, in my opinion. Could have been on a solo album. It's kind of like, oh yeah, we just come off Ace's solo album. If you listen to Rocket Ride and then listen to Ace's solo album and then listen to 2000 Man, it's right there all together. Those songs could have been on any of the albums. So I really like 2000 Man. I'm going to give this song a 9. So we're going to go into the next track. We're going to go to track 3, Sure Know Something. Sure Enough Something was written by Paul Stanley and Vinnie Poncia, sang by Paul. Paul played the rhythm guitar and played the solo. Gene played bass, Anton Fig played drums. Vinnie Poncia sang background. Now this is Paul's second song of the album, and I want to mention something, what I meant to mention when I was talking about 2000 Man. In my opinion, talking about the track listing that I thought should be different. 2000 Man, I think, could have led this album. If 2000 Man would have started Dynasty rather than I Was Made for Loving You, and I Was Made for Loving You would have been maybe the first song on side 2, or maybe somewhere on side 1, maybe the third song or somewhere, or even the second song. I still think the second song is a little too close to the front for my taste. But if it would have been maybe the third song or started the second side, this album might not have been known as might not have been known as the disco album, because this album, it's got some pretty good rockers on it to be considered a disco album. But so for Paul's, but getting back to Sure Know Something, this is Paul's second song on the album. Track 3, we've already got another Paul Stanley song. We haven't seen a Gene song yet. Hadn't seen a Peter song yet, but that's not surprising. We usually would have seen a Gene song by now. But as far as this song goes, I like this song. I think it's a Paul Stanley construction. What I always say about Paul's song, it's very well written, very well produced. Maybe a little too glossy. This whole album gets a little too glossy and poppy, but not quite as much as Unmasked, which I'll be reviewing next. But I like the song okay. I like the do-do-do-do-do, do-do-do-do-do. I mean, I like the bass line in it. The bass line's probably my favorite part of this song. I like the break that they do where it's like, and it kind of, and some of the effects on this is pretty cool. But I like this song. It's a good song, so I give this song a 7 on my rating scale. So we're going to go to the next track, the last track. We finally get to a Peter song, his only appearance on the album, singing or otherwise, Dirty Living.
I'll make my living out on the streets, dirty living. Dirty living. I can't wait any longer to set myself.
Dirty Living was written by Peter Criss, Vinnie Poncia, and Stan Penridge. It was sang by Peter. Peter played the drums. Paul played the rhythm guitar. Ace played the solo. Gene played the bass. Now, like I said, this is the only song that Peter appears on, period, on this album. He sings it. He plays drums on it. But that's it. He's not on any of the other songs. Now, this song was originally written back in 1972 with Stan Penridge while Peter was still in Lips. And he brought it, he brought it into the band, and they rewrote it. They rewrote a lot of the lyrics. If you hear this song, whenever Peter's, if you look on YouTube and some of the tours of he's done where he sang this song, the lyrics are not the same. But this song is basically kind of based on Peter's childhood, having a rough childhood. But they did something kind of clever, and I don't know if they intentionally did it, but they took some of the lyrics and they referenced back to previous KISS songs, where he says, I make my living out on the streets. That's a reference back to Black Diamond, out on the streets for a living. He says, I gotta get away. That's a direct line pulled out of Getaway. I gotta get away to leave this old town. And there's a part where he says mainline out of China. And mainline, so it could be coincidental. But if it is coincidental, it's kind of cool. If it was done on purpose, that's even cooler. And I think it's kind of clever that Peter, like I said, this isn't my favorite Peter song, but I don't hate it. I don't skip it. So, I hate to see Peter go, but, it is what it is. So I rate this song a 6. So we're going to flip the vinyl. We're going to flip on over to Gene. Holy crap, Gene finally showed up. Track 1, side 2, Charisma. Charisma was written by Gene and Howard Marks. Sang by Gene. Gene played the bass. Paul played the rhythm. Ace played the solo. Anton Fig played the drums. So like I said, it's amazing to me that it took us 5 songs in and on the second side. The first side was only 4 songs because 2000 Man was almost 5 minutes. It is a couple seconds shy of being 5 minutes long. And the other songs are well over 4 minutes long. So the first side had some really long songs. They really put a lot into the songs and made them longer songs. So we finally get Gene to show up, and he shows up with a really, really good song. And this song was written by Gene and Howard Marks. And basically, the song was based on, the music-wise is based on the Wicked Lester song called Simple Type. And Howard Marks, he had some music background. Howard Marks was KISS's business manager at the time. And he had some music background, and he had worked with Sean Delaney writing some jingles and things like that. And so he had been having a conversation with Gene saying, what is it about you? What is your charisma? What is it about you? And he actually had wrote down at one point in time a little line, what is my charisma? And Gene saw that. I went, you know how Gene does. And he took some of the music from Simple Type, put it in a blender, and he wrote some more. And he basically wrote words around that line that Howard had wrote, the idea of what the conversation Howard had been having with him. And he wrote charisma. That's what you get out of it. And I don't even really so much think that this is a Demon song. I think this is a Gene song. This is my ego at this point in time so huge because I'm dating Cher, I've dated Donna Summer. I've had, at this point in time, thousands of women. I'm the man, I'm the demon, but even more so, I'm Gene Simmons. And even today, you don't see him, you don't hear him going, I'm the demon. He's like, I'm Gene Simmons. So Gene Simmons had definitely come into his ego, and that's a good thing. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm not slighting him for it. But Charisma is a good song. It's one of the rockin' songs. I like how it starts off. I like the riff. I like the way Gene sings it. I like the solo. It's a really good solo. So on this one, I really like this song. So on this song, I'm going to score this one an 8. So we're going to move on to track number 2. We get our next Paul song, our last Paul song of the album. Paul is 6 songs into this album. And Paul is going to sing this one last song, and he's going to depart. And he will be gone for the rest of the album, singing-wise. Magic Touch.
She's got the magic touch. And you're walking around in a dream. She's got the magic touch.
Written by Paul. Magic Touch was written by Paul, sang by Paul. Paul would also play the rhythm guitar and the bass guitar. Ace played the solo. Anton Fig played the drums. Now I think it's funny that we are only 2 songs into the second side of the album. This album's tracked kind of weird. It's the tracking on it is really weird. But we're 2 songs into the second side, 6 songs in entirely. Paul's on his 3rd song, and after this he's done. And we've had 1 song by Ace. We haven't had a song by Ace since. And we just now had a song by Gene. So I remember listening to this album when I was little. I remember listening and thinking, when's Gene going to show up? Or when, I kind of always expected Peter Hughes always, his place to be was always the last track on the first side of the album. You guys ever notice that? Sometimes they stuck Peter at track 5 or the last track, track 4, on the first side of the album. And, Gene was usually right up front with Paul and Ace, Ace, like I said, he only had 1 song before this, was Love Gun, was Shock Me. But, so now we get our final Paul song, and it's Magic Touch. And as far as Magic Touch goes, I think it's a great song. Once again, it's a Paul Stanley construction. It's a good song. It's got good melodies, good performance. The guitars sound good. Everything sounds good about it. It's just an overall good song. And so I score this song very high. I score this song an 8. And so with that, we're going to get on to the next track. We're going to go to Ace's second song. We finally get our second Ace song for the first time. We get Hard Times.
The hard times are dead and gone, but the hard times have made me strong, and the hard times have made me see that the hard times ain't where I wanna be.
Hard Times was written by Ace and sang by Ace. Ace also played the bass guitar as well as the solo. Paul played rhythm, and Anton Fig played the drums. Now, like I said, this is Ace's second song on the album. It's a good song. I like this song. It's a really good kind of a rocker song. The hard times are dead and gone. You know, he's talking about his childhood, talking about how he's rose above his childhood. He wrote a specific subject matter on this one. You know, Ace, a lot of times he'll write very loosely. His lyrics are very loosely. It's almost like his lyrics are second thought. It's like he writes his music, the song first, and then he puts lyrics in. But this one, the music and the lyrics are just as good to each other. And I really like Hard Times. It's got a really good solo. The guitars sounded really good on it. This isn't a disco song, kids. This is rock and roll. Charisma is rock and roll. You know, 2000 Man is rock and roll. This is not a disco album. So I always tell people that when they say, oh, Dynasty disco album, I'm like, it is not a disco album. You know, there's a disco song, disco-like song, but I will bang that drum to the end to my dying breath that Dynasty is not a disco album. It's got Hard Times. It's got 2000 Man. It's got charisma. It's got rockers on it. So I really like this song. So on my rating scale, I score this song at 8. So now we're going to get to another Gene song, and it's his second song on the album, and it's his last song on the album, and he's going to be singing about his X-Ray Eyes. X-Ray Eyes was written by Gene and sang by Gene. Gene played bass. Paul played rhythm guitar. Ace played the solo. Anton Fig played the drums. Now, as I said, this is Gene's second song, just his second song. It is the next to last song on the album. And so 2 songs, Gene's out. And X-Ray Eyes, to me, it's not that great of a song. I don't really like it. I do like the way he sings. And I like the solo. The solo is really good. But I just don't. And Gene sings very soulful a couple times in it. But there's just something about this song. It's, to quote my son Steven, it's kind of uninspiring to me. It doesn't really stand out. It's probably what I would consider filler. And up to this point, probably the only filler song. I don't even consider Dirty Living filler because it's a good song. So this to me is a filler track of the album. And so my rating score, I don't hate this song. I don't skip it. So I'm going to give it a 5. So that takes us to the last track, which is an Ace song. And so of course, since it's the last track, it's Ace's third and final song, Save Your Love.
Baby, it's over.
Save Your Love was written and sang by Ace. Ace played the guitars and also played the bass guitar and the solo. Anton Fig played the drums. So this is Ace's third song. It's his final song. And this is kind of something monumental because Ace only had one song that he sang lead on leading up to this point on Love Gun. He did have 2 songs on Kiss Alive 2 if you say, oh, well, he had Love Gun and he also had Rocket Ride. But one was live, one was studio. I'll give you that. So he had 2 songs on Kiss Alive 2. But on Dynasty, he has 3 songs. Gene had 2 songs. Peter had 1 song. Paul had 3 songs. So for the first time, Ace had more songs than Gene and tied Paul for the amount of songs. So I think that right there is monumental, and it says a lot for how much, it says a lot to how much Ace was contributing. Now, Save Your Love is probably my least favorite of the 3 Ace albums on this album. The solo's good. The guitars sound good. Ace's guitars on this album sound good. Ace's voice sounds good. You can hear the confidence in his voice. The chorus gets on my nerves because it's just save your love, save it, save it. You know, I mean, now I like a save your love, I don't want it. I like when Ace does that kind of stuff. But I don't really like Paul's background vocals and the way the drums kind of go into double time on the chorus. Not a big fan of that. So, but I still like this song pretty good, but it is my least of the 3 Ace albums, or it is my least of the 3 favorite Ace songs on this album. So I'm going to score this one a 7. Okay, guys, so that wraps this album up for me. So I'm going to read off my scores here real quick and recap my scores. So I Was Made for Loving You is a 7. 2000 Man's a 9. Sure Know Something's a 7. Dirty Living is a 6. Charisma's a 8. Magic Touch is a 8. Hard Times is a 8. I really like those 3 songs. XRay Eyes is a 5. Save Your Love is a 7. And that's a total of 65. And if you divide that by 9 songs, that is a 7.22. So where does that put this album as far as on my overall rankings? Where does that slide Dynasty in at? And I was going into this thinking that I knew Dynasty was going to be in the top 10. And I've thought that at this point, anyway, that it may be in the top 5. So I'm going to do my rankings here of the albums up to this point, and we'll see where it's at. So Kiss Alive 2 remains number 1 at 7.75. Ace's Solo number 2 at 7.44. Dynasty slides into 3rd at 7.22. Rock and Roll Over is 4th at 7.1. Then Alive 7.06. Then Paul's Solo 7. Love Gun 6.9. Destroyer 6.77. Dress to Kill 6.3. Kiss the debut album 5.9. Harder Than Hell 5.7. Gene's Solo 5.55. Peter's Solo 5.5. I don't think it's going to stay in the top 5. But we'll find out. Who knows? I still have a lot of albums to go. Like I said, I'm doing Unmasked here next. And then after that, of course, we have The Elder there. And some people already kind of know that I'm a little bit of a fan of The Elder. So we'll see what happens with that one. A lot of people don't know where I really stand on this one right here. And I've actually already wrote my review up for it. I haven't filmed it yet. And I can't remember I can't quite say if I was surprised or if I kind of like, oh yeah, I kind of knew that's where I was going to fall on that. But we'll be getting to that one next. So I'm going to do my final thoughts of Dynasty here. And then we'll go ahead and wrap this up. So I'm going to read my notes here. I got my notes. I like to read my final thoughts because I actually put thought into my final thoughts. My final thought is I really like Dynasty. I hate that this album is often called the disco album just because of I Was Made for Loving You and the tempo of some of the songs on the album. Like I said, this is not a disco album. Quit calling it that. I think the production is a little too slick on most of the songs, but the rockers like 2000 Man, Charisma, and Hard Times still manage to punch through the glossy. I hate that this is the last album that we get out of all the original KISS members until Psycho Circus. But I also feel that Peter, in a way, had served his purpose, and the band was going in a direction that he was not really suited for, nor was he going to be very happy with. In my opinion, Dynasty kicks ass. and it does not surprise me that it popped in at number 3 and popped into my top 5 at this point on my rankings list. And it would not surprise me if Dynasty doesn't stay in the top 10 by the time I've done through all the 30-something KISS albums. So, Dynasty, what do you think about it? Be sure to put in the comments. Interact with me, people. Put some comments down there. I guess that's it for now. It's kind of weird not having my son here. I really kind of miss him, but I understand he's got, things that he's got to do, and he's got stuff that he's got to do, but he's going to be back. He's coming back for the Elder. So, and we'll see how we both feel about that. And I think he's going to be back for some albums later on. He's not really told me exactly which ones yet, but he will be back. So I'm really looking forward to that because I miss doing my reviews with him. But anyway, that's going to wrap it up for Dynasty. I'm Brant within my head channel. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, keep watching, and I'll see you next time.